Russian President Vladimir Putin is going to be in India later this week on the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, this bilateral summit is coming at a time when India's relationship with the US has been up in the air, and the US President Donald Trump has claimed that a part of its tariff on India is because of the Russian oil imports. This is the latest episode of Seema Says, where the Wire's editor Seema Chishti talks about what's happening lately.
You've put it very well. What is going on really is sort of, India thought that it could kind of waltz with Putin and tango with Trump or the US at the same time. And we've had a long relationship with Russia, which predates Russia. It goes back to the USSR, and we try to continue it. There is an almost dependence on the arms that Russia supplies to us and the spare parts and maintenance. A large part of that is taken care of Russia. But after February 2024, when Russia got nearly pariah status by the West, there were all kinds of regulations. It was thrown out of the international financial system. India was almost, if you like, the bridge at that time when Mr. Biden was still in office. And India was buying oil from Russia, cheaper oil, and it was almost sending it back to the West, if you like, to Europe. But India was buying it, and the West just turned a blind eye to it. Trump in 2025 has disrupted this tango waltz together scenario and put India in a very difficult position. India, because of geopolitical realities and its inability to really stand up, finds itself in a very peculiar situation where it's hoping somehow that it honors Putin because it needs arms, it is dependent on him. But because it stopped buying oil, it has almost succumbed to being told that you could have sanctions as high as 500%. Trump does all this truth social diplomacy, very open diplomacy, and India is kind of stuck in that situation. So it's hoping that it honors Putin when he's here on the 4th and the 5th of December, but it's also hoping that it doesn't cause anything more than a kerfuffle in the West. And I think the West will be watching very closely. But I think what really comes to mind is how difficult India's situation is vis-a-vis China, the other big kind of player on the scene. We have such a huge trade deficit with them. We are dependent on the US for a whole lot of other reasons: technology, human resources, our people are there. We can't really opt out of the Western orbit, and we're trying to maintain this kind of relationship with Russia. So I think this visit with Vladimir Putin has to be watched very closely on what is the level of proximity that India projects and what it does, and of course what Mr. DJT kind of tweets or puts on Truth Social shortly.
Well, how this unfolds remains to be seen. Now, in the latest turn of events, the government has directed phone makers and importers to pre-install its own cyber security app, which is called the Sanchar Sati. And as per the Ministry of Communication, its purpose is to verify the authenticity or genuineness of the handset. Except that the government has said that the phone makers also have to ensure that the app cannot be removed or tampered with. Experts have said that this is a major breach of privacy. What does Seema have to say?
What does Seema have to say? Well, actually, the government and the government's record is like pretty appalling on two scores. One is it's in its ability to keep our data safe. So there has been COVID, there have been major data leaks, there was major serious Aadhaar leaks where cabinet ministers, etc.'s Aadhaar numbers, Ratan Tata's Aadhaar numbers and all were up there. That's been a big question, thousands of people's data. Mr. Modi's Twitter handle was hacked, and we didn't hear anything of it. I think Bitcoin ads were put onto that, some Bitcoin currency ads were there, and it was shut down. We weren't told what happened. CERT-in, there are many questions about CERT-in and how they secure the data. So this Sanchar Sati, which Varun Grover has called the sort of Snoop Sati, what that does is we don't know how much it will be able to really secure the situation, because India faces a big crisis of digital cybersecurity. In various reports done by other private groups and all about how secure India is, we don't come out brilliantly in that. Number two, the government's record with personal data. The personal data protection law, the rules have just been notified. They speak very poorly of their ability. They're wanting to keep personal private data secure, what they know. And number three is, of course, we know about Pegasus, how the government was super concerned about private data, private things with what certain citizens it wants to do, are doing. And this is almost, as people are saying, that was Pegasus a beta model of actually just installing this software in everybody's phones. But we're seeing the minister Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia suddenly has said that, oh, it's optional and you can take it off. But that is not what the notification, 7B in the notification issued by the government, which they were forced to make public because Reuters had put out a story yesterday, which they finally, PIB did a release claiming that, yes, this is what we've done. What that says does not make it appear as if it is not compulsory. But they saying that it is not compulsory anymore, I don't know how that would spin it in the days to come. But it kind of speaks very poorly of India's wanting to control, as always, and also give very poor signs if it's not able to do so. But where does the Indian citizen stand with Facebook, Meta, Instagram, which are by no means reliable, great, mega sort of, which are controlling the information verse? And then you have the government of India with a poor record of what it does to dissidents and dissents, etc., going after all our data. And then it's utter incompetence, its inability to even gatekeep and hold our data secure. So within these three big fault lines, Sanchar Sati seems like a really bad idea to have sitting on your phone compulsorily all the time.
To know about this issue more, our Deputy Editor Janvi Sen has also interviewed Internet Freedom Foundation Apar Gupta's founder and director. If you wish to know more, please go to The Wire's YouTube channel and you can watch the video. Next is the International Monetary Fund has decided to give India's national account statistics, which includes key figures like GDP and GVA, C grade. Now, what does that mean, and should this worry us?
You should. India's obsessive report cards. I'm sure you remember in your childhood going to parents, C grade is not okay. So B grade is pretty bad too. But C, when the worst grade is D, seems like a really bad score to get. So I think, so I won't go into the details of that. And as you said, there's a lot of stuff. Karan Thapar has also done a great detailed interview on why they've called it on B and C. But why this should bother us? A couple of things. One, I think it should bother us because there are a lot of, it just means that India's data is not okay. That does not speak well of how Indian data is evaluated or looked at globally, where data matters. Number two, data is really important. Up-to-date data is important. And Ritika Khera and Jean Dresse said that nearly 10 crore Indians may not be getting PDS or the food that they need because the data baseline being used by the government of India, because we've had no census for 16 years, is from 2011. So data matters. Data matters because I need to know how many people died in COVID. But Indian data, it was 10 times worse. So for the people, it gives a very bad signal about how good or kosher government data is. So I think it also speaks of governance abilities, that why are you messing up with GDP data? Why are you using a deflator of 0.5%? So I think it's scary because it highlights the government as not being able to put out good data, which is being caught out by IMF. And the fact that a lot of our data is either not available or wrong or just simply not there. And we're having a census after 16 years. Let's see how well we count then.
Arun Kumar, in an interview with Karan Thapar, has also said that but a chunk of it also comes from including the informal sector. So can you comment on that?
Sure. Well, actually what's happening with GDP is that when you're counting, a lot of it is estimates because you don't have the annual exact counts available. And a lot of because the informal sector by definition is harder to count accurately in every quarter. So a lot of the assumptions of the formal sector, the formal factory, whatever, which is all documented, is being applied to the informal sector. But the informal sector has suffered such absolutely severe shocks, almost like life-threatening shocks like demonetization, COVID, GST, everything. So those assumptions don't really apply. So if you're doing that and you're just assuming things about the informal sector, you're doing a guesstimate. You're not actually doing a data count. You're not doing a real count. So that's the problem. And the IMF has also spoken about what happens with data, Minal, is that something that you buy now looks much more valuable than what your grandmother bought. But that is the same thing. But that is because prices were so different then, they're different now. So to get its real, compare the two things, you will deflate it by the inflation. That's what you do. But now what's happening is that the deflator that India is using is so low. It's 0.5%, the wholesale price deflator. That makes your what your grandmother bought seem almost worthless compared to what you bought, only because of the price number. So that's like the big problem in the data.
Okay. Moving on, So, a museum conceptualized by the master of modern art, M.F. Husain, before his death, has come to life in Qatar, featuring many of his prized work. Would a museum like this have been possible in India, or at least for us to host?
M.F. Hussain kind of is so much about, he speaks of the two kind of Indias we have. He speaks about the immense creative potential, excellence of a great man like that, who could actually draw between the Ramayana, the Quran, Mother Teresa, Bharat Mata, Gandhi, Nehru. He was just genius, right? And he's like a world-class person, but he was an Indian and he was rooted in his heritage. He drew profusely from it. So that was the excellent India that we know, the plural, wonderful India, creative India. But his story is also about the shadows cast on that beautiful India, because he was almost hounded out of here. His artworks were taken down when they were put up in exhibitions here. They were taken down. He was hounded for they said that he was misinterpreting Hindu goddesses deliberately and portraying Lord Ganesha, Saraswati badly, which was not his intention, and he was not doing that. But he was hounded for that, and he was chased out. So he actually went out and sought Qatari citizenship. And it's a tragedy that, born an Indian, completely that Indian heritage is there in his Loh Kalam museum work, but he died a Qatari citizen. But I must also say that where it brings out the other nice side of India is the wonderful judgment on the freedom of expression with retired Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul wrote on Husain, sort of liberates all Indians in theory for doing this. And he speaks about how we should be liberated and creative potential needs to be allowed to flower. But it's so tragic that Husain's museum has to sit in Doha in Qatar.
All right, so this brings us to the last segment, where Seema recommends.
No, Minal recommends before that. Minal, as you're doing this for the first time, can we have your recommendation first?
So my recommendation is this article I read in the New York magazine. It's called The Theory of the Dumb. It talks about how we are getting dumber because of the content that we are consuming, and it's because of our untethered exposure to a lot of loud and uninformed opinions. So that is. And another recommendation is Jolly LLB 3. I loved the movie. It's a proper mainstream Bollywood film which surprisingly addressed crony capitalism and farmers' right, and it talks about the spirit of the constitution and how it's important to uphold our values, constitutional
Wonderful.
values.
My recommendations are like a bit oblique. Yours are lovely. But mine is, I would recommend everybody watches this interview by Meredith Whittaker, who's like this wonderful scholar and also happens to be the president of Signal. Yeah, that app that you use when you are worried about Sanchar Sati. So Meredith has done a lovely interview in the Mohinihan report recently. We'll put it up in the show notes, right? And the second thing I recommend is an oldish book, but I reread it. It's Maryada by Arshia Sattar, who talks about, it's about looking at the Ramayana and the competing dharmas that it talks about. It's like a really deep kind of introspective look at dilemmas. A lot of people see Mahabharata as the text which is about competing dharmas, and the Ramayana is meant to be straightforward. But she finds all the shadows, the lights, and the interesting things in that text and has written about it. We'll put the details in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Seema, and
Thank you, Minal.
Thank you, viewers, for watching. For more updates on whatever is going on, you can always go to our website and to our YouTube channel. Thank you.